Let me be a little bit controversial in an area that shouldn't really be that controversial. Other than getting the stoppage, Shakur did just about everything he was supposed to do. Now, this is mostly going to be a discussion of a fight theory video because there's a lot of important ideas to cover, but we're going to look at a couple of clips, so just stick around, hit that like button. Now let's talk. There are some criticisms to be levied against Shakur for pulling his punches and not doing enough to get the KO or the TKO, but which, let's be honest, he's gonna get a TKO. But like we've acknowledged in the past, the popular fighter, the overdog, often receives all of the criticism, even if the underdog is severely underperforming and is the primary cause for the boring fight, which in this case is true. Artem was the one running away, and now there's some nuance because obviously Shakur has something to prove because his previous performance was, yeah, we don't even got to go there. One of the most boring fights of all time, but we'll talk more about that a little bit at the end. Stick around, hit that like button like I said earlier so we can talk science. Also subscribe. But there are a lot of positives in this performance, as there is with just about every Shakur fight, because he's a damn good fighter. You want to know the number one thing that would have made a difference in making this fight a TKO or a unanimous decision? Moments like this. Steps in with the jab, brings the guard up, stabs the body, and then hooks around the guard. His combos, when he actually does throw them, are some of the best shot selection combos, I think, in all of boxing. Now, are they dangerous combos? No. He obviously doesn't hit that hard. He has some decent power, but in order for him to get those TKOs, he has to sit down on combos like that, and he didn't do enough of that in this fight. But his defense, as always, is more impressive. At least to me, I'm more impressed by his defense than his offense. Probably because his offense, isn't doing too much damage, but his defense is just immaculate. And in this fight in particular, contrasted to his previous fight, he wasn't doing a lot of jumping back, and that probably gives credence to the fact that he did have an injury in the previous fight. But here he's standing in front of Artem, and he's just so hard to hit, turning, going from a shell to a high guard, turning, leaning back, pulling back, using his feet at the same time, slipping, getting down, using his shoulder. And then Artem trying to measure, turning back into the guard, just so many layers, and then turning again. His guard is immaculate. He probably has the best defense in all of boxing if I had to choose someone. One of the criticisms I've heard about Shakur's defense, particularly from Tank, who had a lot to say, and that fight will probably happen one day, is that Shakur relies a lot on distance management for his defense, jumping back, leaning back. And that's especially what he pulled versus De Los Santos. But in this fight, he shows more layers, and it's not like these layers weren't visible in previous fights. It's just he had a lot to prove, and so he was putting his foot on the gas, and he was standing in front of Artem rather than jumping back. And you see he's the one coming forward, and he does kind of pull back right there, but then you see put that guard up and slipping, rolling, getting underneath shots. So he's showing layers rather than just jumping back, which was a big criticism of his previous fight. Now, like I said earlier, I think there are a lot of positives in this performance, the most important one being that Shakur looked like Shakur. However, as far as a lot of fans are concerned, the positives definitely do not outweigh the negatives. When you are a great fighter, or even to be potentially great, the expectations put on you sometimes seem unfair, and sometimes they are. But they're greater regardless. They're greater expectations. After having a boring fight previously, people expected him to come out and have a more entertaining fight, and there were reasons within his control why that didn't happen, and there were also reasons outside of his control, particularly based off his opponent's actions. Now, both of those should be acknowledged, and generally in conversations in boxing, only one aspect of an issue is acknowledged due to tribalism and dogmatism. It depends on what narrative people want to run with and what faction or tribe you're a part of. Here in the lab, we don't pick sides. We pick apart the evidence we can find and try to attach our opinion to some semblance of the truth. And here is the truth. Shakur is a damn, I do a double damn when I really mean it, good fighter, possibly even a great fighter, but he has to get tested first. The sweet science, now this is where we're going to end off before I talk about what's next. The sweet science is not limited to boring styles or pot shotting. Artur Beterbiev, Crawford, Uwe, Tank, Boots, AJ are all elites in the sweet science, and some of them are pound for pound arguably #1 fighters. And all of them you're talking unified champions, some of the greats of their divisions, all elites in the sweet science, and all of them are very violent and or entertaining. Just because you're being scientific or technical, it doesn't give you the excuse to be boring. You're just boring. That doesn't mean that you're not good. You can be a great fighter and still be a boring fighter, and you can be an entertaining fighter and still be a trash fighter. The two things aren't necessarily, irrevocably intertwined. Now, I don't think Shakur is always, I think he has his moments where he's boring, and this was one of them. And his last fight was definitely one of them. But Shakur can be entertaining, especially if he has an opponent that's gonna stand there and really stay in front of him. But if he has somebody that's moving like this, or if he decides he wants to do the moving, then yeah, it's going to be a boring fight. Now, one fighter I'm definitely going to cover very soon is Abdullah Mason. I've been looking at him for a while now, and I'm definitely going to cover him soon. I might look at Keyshawn Davis. I got to see that fight because I didn't get to see that in full. And of course, before 12 a.m. tonight, I promise that Bam Rodriguez video is coming out, and it's probably going to be quite a large video, and maybe the largest ever. We'll see how I feel with the amount of content in that one. Then we're back to full-time schedule, finishing the Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe breakdown, getting into Roy Jones kickboxing, everything else. Back to the normal schedule. We're back full-time in the science lab. I'm out.